And the assault on the north face of fitting the Cyclotricity mid-drive continues. So I think the end of the last video had kind of got it to this place where it was sort of working. And since then we've uncovered a couple of issues that need to be addressed. Firstly, this unit here that actually attaches the bottom bracket is able to move up and down like this. It's gradually loosened itself off. I think when I fitted the crank arms, well, really I should have tightened up the bottom bracket before I fitted the crank arms. It's a lot easier to tighten it up and you get a much tighter fit. As the unit's being used, it will naturally want to push itself up against the frame, the down tube, and on this bike, as with a lot of bikes, the gear cables that operate the front and rear mech run down underneath the down tube. So I had to try and find a way of spacing that out. I think I may have come up with something in this little fitting here. Can you see that? Yeah. So what that is, it's actually a fitting that goes on the legs of kitchen units, to which the kickboard at the bottom of the kitchen unit can be screwed onto it, and then you clip it onto the legs. And it just occurred to me that it's probably more or less the right diameter to clip onto the down tube of the frame, and if I allow the cables to run down each side there, it shouldn't foul those, and there should be enough strength in the plastic under compression to take the force, if there is any, of this unit trying to push itself up against the frame. So I think what I'm going to do is pull these crank arms off, clip this into position, and then attempt to put it all back together. So I'll just gather some tools and I'll do that now. So I've found my trusty big Allen key. I'm just going to try and undo that. These are quite loose. I never really tightened them up fully before I fitted them. So we'll put that on there. Undo that. Undo the other side. This is something of a repeat of a previous bit of video when I first fitted this, so this will be a bit of a revision session. We'll put that in there. I think this will come off fairly easily because they've not spent the customary 5 or 6 years fitted to the bottom bracket, quietly corroding themselves on. So I think this should be relatively easy. There we go. That was lovely. Not only that, we actually put some lubricant on before we fitted these, which helps. So let me just, don't need that, just get this one out. Right, let's screw that in, do that up. If I torque that up against the, these should pop off pretty easily. It's slightly annoying, it's just a little bit too long. There we go. Right, off. Okay, just bring this around. We might get a better view. I'll do that YouTube thing again. Can you see what I can see? can you see what I can see? Not from there. Okay. Possibly a little bit far away, but this is the component we're going to be trying to attack there. So I don't know if you remember, but we were provided with this useful tool. So I'm going to undo it first to try and just see where we are and see if I can. So I'm undoing the locking collar on the outside. I'm not sure this is great footage. Okay. Seeing how far I can actually pull this out of the way. Now, I can see where the device is touching the frame. It's actually put a little dent in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this fitting on to the down tube inside the two cables. Like that. And I've slid it up underneath to the point where I think the unit is touching. So that's worked okay. Okay. And now I want to get as much tension as I feasibly can on this to tighten everything up. Now what's a bit awkward about this is that I think I'm going to have to do this really branch that on. I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to give it a whack. Okay, so let's go for broke and give this a whack. Right. Do a bit more. Okay, so that's on nice and tight. And this is the locking ring that goes on the outside. So this, I don't think will have any material effect on the actual security of the thing, apart from it's just a locking nut. So there's no harm in getting plenty of tension onto that as well. Okay, I'll do that with this as well. Okay. Okay. So I was using a rubber mat for that. Well, that happened a bit more quickly than I was expecting. I didn't really have a decent amount of tension on that before, so I think that would have made a big difference. I'll try and I'm going to go with shaky cam again. Just try to show what it looks like down here. Right, okay, so that, there we go. So that's the clip that I clipped on further down and slid up the tube. This is actually part of this case, and it's bearing down on the plastic there. If I can get slightly better light. Ah, dear. Okay. better. So yeah, that's the, God, fingers are never where you think they are on this. When you're trying to do this, here we go. That's the clip, and that's the top of the clip, and that's the bottom of this. So I've kind of that's the part, there's a metal protrusion there which would sit against the frame. So I've just basically slid that up until it's underneath that, in vaguely the right place. The two cables are running quite helpfully down the side of this plastic. I don't know, they might grind away on it. They'll sort of wear onto it a little bit, but I don't think that actually really matters. So I positioned it there, and that's when I finished tightening up this part to lock this. God, if that's not done what I need, then well, we're going to have to think again. I was considering like zip tying around the whole thing to the frame just to stop it from dropping down. As I say, when in use, its natural tendencies will be to try to do that and press on the down tube. Of course, the bike right now is upside down. One thing to note, there is a spare. Doing this without any instructions at all. There was when you've plugged everything together, there are two plugs with an orangey end. One up at this end of the cable near the handlebars, and there's also one. It's actually this one down here. Now I was aware that the system does have a speed sensor, which is, you can't see it. Hang on. This is the speed sensor here. Now I thought naturally, as back in the day when we used to have speed sensors with wires for our bikes, if you remember that, before the wireless ones started, generally you'd fit the speed sensor on the front wheel, and so I thought, oh well, this obviously where it connects up to the speed sensor here, and happy days. Well, the answer is no, it doesn't. If you do that, you get an error code 22 on the unit, which is a throttle fault. Now this is actually for if you have a system with a throttle, so you can fit a throttle to this, but there are sort of legal and regulatory ramifications of that, which is one of those legal grey or not quite grey areas. So this is actually for a throttle, and in fact, as far as I can tell, the system started working when I attached the speed sensor to this yellow plug, or orangey plug, which is at the other end of the cable, much closer to the actual power unit, and I fitted the speed sensing pickup to the chainstay. Is that chainstay? Oh, is that chainstay? Don't want to get that wrong. Okay, well, you know what I mean anyway. I think it is one of the chainstays. So yeah, so to me that was slightly counterintuitive. You don't normally fit, you know, speed sensors to the back wheel, but actually that's the only way I could make the whole thing work. So you can see there it is there, and I've got a there's a bit of a buckle in the wheel actually, but there's a magnet which you fit to the spoke. It's a pretty standard type of system. Sure, anyone who's fitted any kind of bits to bikes will get it. And I moved it around a bit until it started to register and deliver information. So and without that in place, the system won't work. I assume because the system's limited to a maximum speed, so it stops providing further assistance when you get above a certain speed, I imagine. Rather impishly, I kind of thought actually if you could set up some kind of system to send a steady pulse through this, so that the system always thought it was doing about 10 miles an hour, I think you might be able to defeat that safety regulation. But we're not in that place at the moment. So yeah, so that's the thing to note. Connect your speed sensor up to the right end of the wiring harness. So it's the orangey coloured one down by the power unit, which you need to use for the speed sensor. and as far as I can tell, you just have to leave the throttle connection just loose, or maybe just chuck some tape over it or something just to keep it, just to protect it. So I'll just so I think at the moment that's that aspect. The next bit is just a bit more about the drivetrain, so I'll stop, turn my bike round, and pick it up again in a minute. One aspect of the system that we bought, at least, is that you lose any gears you have at the front here. You lose. You have to go back to a standard chainring size that they provide for you. Now that has left us here with not really enough bottom end. So in an attempt to, so there were various ways of we thought about various solutions for this. We don't really need top end for the purpose of this, for this bike's purpose, which is basically towing kids around up and down a few hills. We don't really need the high speed stuff, so one option would be to attempt to find a chainring of a smaller diameter to go on here. So I think with the right, with a little bit of engineering and an adapter plate of some form, you could probably relatively easily fit a even smaller chainring to here, so that you're getting into easier ratios to get you up the hills. So that's one option. What I have decided to attempt is to fit an oversize cassette to the back end, essentially, rather than reducing the size of the chain ring to increase the size of the cassette. And I have bought something which should do that, but it is way bigger than I was expecting. So this is what came through the post. I'm not sure if you can really tell the size of it, but it's enormous. It's bigger than the actual chainring at the front. So they supply with this a Derailleur hanger extension, which I can kind of understand, because the derailleur is going to have to drop right down to these really low ratios if it is going to work at all. So in order to fit this, we're going to have to take the old cassette off the wheel and fit this new cassette and see what on earth that looks like. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty ugly, but we can but try. This is a bit of a voyage of discovery, really. So we try these things. It may not work. It's not. This wasn't desperately expensive. It was less than £40, I think. So it wouldn't be the absolute end of the world if we can't get it going. But it would be good if we can. So, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip the back wheel off, and then we'll go over to the bench and see if we can take you through taking the cassette off, which might be of interest. I'll just dig in the tools and we'll take it from there. Back at the bench, this is the process of removing the cassette. Oh, is this a cassette or is it a free hub? This is really embarrassing, I can't remember. I think it's a cassette type. Yeah, free hubs are different, they kind of screw on, but what you will need is one of these, which is a removal tool. I don't know if you can see, it's got splines on it, and those splines engage with the internal machinings in the inside of the cassette. I'm going to have to keep calling it the cassette, even if I'm not 100% sure whether I'm right. So that basically allows you to get a kind of a grip on this. The way this removes is basically you unscrew this kind of locking ring at the outside here. Should become obvious. So you ideally, to undo it, you would turn it that way, but the problem is when you turn it that way, the whole thing moves with it. So you know, of course, because there's a free wheel there. Doing it up is a lot easier because you're actually working against the free wheel, and you can use the actual leverage of the wheel itself to tighten it up. So in order to get around that problem, you use a chain whip, which is just essentially a piece of chain with a handle on it, which allows you to kind of grip the free wheel with a cassette and stop it from moving while you undo the locking ring. So let's do that. So I'm holding, basically you just kind of run the chain around whichever is the your preferred sprocket on the free wheel. God, what am I saying? The cassette, and then attempt to undo that, which I did with surprising and slightly worrying ease. Okay, so if I undo this now, I'm not sure why, but I'm finding this whole task a little bit dispiriting. I genuinely don't know why. I love working on bikes, but I just don't know, this is just, the more we dive into doing this thing, the more problems seem to emerge. Okay, so basically that's unscrewed from there. This is the various components. These the two outer gears are free, and the rest of it is usually in one kind of built up part. For reasons, I got no idea exactly why. It feels fair enough to me, but yeah, so that I'll put back into my inventory of bits. Well, maybe maybe to be immediately refitted if this monstrous thing doesn't actually work out. So the idea is to try and fit this onto here. This is, believe it or not, a 9-speed unit. I specified that. Just take these zip ties off without, can I do that without wasting them? I'm afraid I'm one of those obsessive people who needs to save zip ties. No, I think I'm going to cut my losses and give them a snip. So we'll snip these off. Being ready for this thing to fall apart. Okay, right, okay. That's done. I hate doing that. I hate wasting stuff. Even zip ties. Right, so now there's one narrow spline. The rest of the splines are sort of the order of about 5mm wide, and one of them is about 2-3mm wide. So you just have to find where that narrow one is on your free hub, is this, which is there, and that allows you to index this down onto there. Right, so let's see if we get any joy. That's there, and then you just stack the rest of them up like so. Looks okay to me. God, this thing's bloody enormous. It is enormous. So, oh come on, you got to fit. Please fit. Okay, it does fit. Right, I thought it somehow managed to have a non-compatible. There. Right, so then I've just piled all those bits up, and then I'm going to try and screw this back down. Oh dear, I think I've crossed the thread. Don't cross the thread. Oh Christ. backwards first. Backwards first. Until you feel it click. There. Okay, right. I think that's properly threaded on. Okay, it's probably too big a is vast, but it's on. I'm getting in the right place. It's on. Right, okay. Back to the bike. Back to the bike. So I've taken off the rear mech, which is basically achieved just by putting a 5mm Allen. I think it's a 5. I think it's a 5 or a 4. 5. Down inside, in the end where it connects to the frame. You can generally, we're in all sorts of trouble because this mech is just the position of it for this huge chainring is just all wrong. So you put that down inside there and you can undo it. It just undoes like a normal bolt. Okay, and that comes off. Now, so they supply a derailleur hanger extension, which is this thing, which is not going to be sufficient because I think we're going to have to lengthen the chain, but let's see how we get on. So this will fit into the frame basically, and it just lowers the position where the derailleur connects with the frame and allows it to reach down to those big gears. So let's try that. So if I then this and try to, it's so tight, this is awful. I'm trying to get it off those cogs there. Right, okay, fine. So I'm just going to try and manoeuvre this around to the right place and using the correct Allen key, of course. I'm not sure this is all going to work, but we'll just have to see how we go. I'm making this really hard on myself. I think I should really remove the cable from the mech. Just see if I can get those threads to engage. I think I might have done it. Come on. Yeah, I think we're there. Oh, right. That's done something. Woo! What have I done here? There we go. Right, well, that's working at that end of the range. to lengthen the this chain needs to be lengthened, but something's happening. It's sort of surprisingly looking surprisingly more or less okay-ish. Crikey. But yeah, that really needs its chain to be lengthened. So for that I'll need my chain splitting tool, which I will find, and also a bit of chain. Let's see how we go on. Okay, so I've tracked down my chain tool. I've got it on the highest ratio. I think I'm going to add enough chain. I'm going to add as much chain as this derailleur can actually. This is a long cage derailleur, so it should be able to absorb a fair amount of extra chain. I'm not going to go through the intricacies of breaking chain, because I suspect there are a million YouTube videos about that, and I think I'm sure they'll do a better job of explaining it than I will. So I would kind of rather lazily send you off to go and look for that yourself. I've got new chain here. Well, I say new, some chain. I'm not quite sure where it came from. I'm hoping that it will fit okay, splicing all right. So I'm just taking this. I mean, that's about as much as that derailleur is able to take up. So it's about 5.5 inches or something. So if I pop or push out this pin here, this rivet here, let's see if I can just, oh, not too much, Will, not too much. It's close. What you don't really want to do is pop the pin all the way out. Phew, that was quite close. So, just try this for size. Okay, might work. Might be a tiny bit too long even, but let's see. So, basically I'm adding extra chain because of the huge dimension of that new rear lowest gear at the back. It needs that extra chain to actually be able to go, to actually fit all the way around all the sprockets. So here we go. So I'll just do this. This is always tricky, getting this right. It's a bit of a balancing act of squishing things together and then unsquishing them. Technical term. Right, okay, come on, let's see if I've got that. Right, that's moving, that's good enough for now. Alright, and then I just need to push this rivet through here. God, this is a bit of a tedious one probably. I might have to sort this out in the edit, or maybe I won't. But hopefully it's of some help to somebody. I'm just trying to get this lined up so I don't want to rush. I'm not going to rush. Don't rush. There we go, there we go, there we go. Just get everything lined up properly. Go on. Yep. this is not doing my back any good. Just squeeze that. Right. Okay. That's more chain on there. Let's see what we got. Can we find our biggest gear? Really? Yes, yes, yes. That's it. God, that's ugly. That is as ugly as hell. But it's up there. And it even changes. Oh my God, that is absolutely horrible. But I think it's going to work. It's funny how that one just... Right, so what's happening here is because of the huge size of that, again we've got some issues with our front mech, but the thing about the front mech is that we don't actually need it. So yeah, we don't need it. So we can actually take it off and get it out of the way if we can find the right size of Allen key. Right, there we go. That's a 5. So let's undo that. See if I can get this undone. Right, okay, so I've taken that, I've undone that cable, which is now a little bit dangly, but never mind. And then I'm just going to swing this up and out of the way. If I can get, right, the battery's in the way of that Allen bolt now, so, right. I'll just have to stop this again just to see if I can get that sorted. And get that front mech cleared. It's about 20 minutes later. I've just been out for a test ride, and it seems to be working okay. Second gear from lowest sounds horrible, but it works. The changing is remarkably smooth actually. You can see the relative size of the cassette and the chainring at the front. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But with a bit of extra chain in there, enough to give you enough slack to get up there, it just seems to work. It seems to work okay. The bike, the pedal assist is interesting. The dynamics of it are quite interesting, particularly in low gears. When the bike is not heavily loaded. I mean, I'm not the heaviest person, and I'm not towing the trailer at the moment. So I mean, the point of this exercise really is to produce a sort of a tractor for our trailer with the kids in it. So I suspect with that extra inertia and load, the pedal assist will maybe feel a bit smoother. At the moment it seems to be, it seems to be chopping in and out a little bit. It feels quite suddenly. You start to learn immediately how to manage the pedal assist in a way when you've got it to actually kick in. If you then back off your own power quite substantially, the pedal assist will stay in there underneath you. So there's a bit of learning to be done, but I think the human mind being what it is, even at my advanced state of years, it's remarkably plastic. So there will be there'll be a learning curve, but I think very quickly it will become second nature just to pedal in a way that uses the pedal assist in the most efficient manner. Yeah, but getting into that really big bottom cog doesn't seem to be a problem, and with that you can go up. I tried the possibly the second and third most gnarly hills near us, and it seemed to work okay, albeit without the trailer. But that was with the assist dials right down to, you know, 2 or 3 out of 6. So yeah, well, we'll see. Cautiously optimistic. My key worry at the moment really is the chain that I have spliced into this old chain. Just being sure that that connection is strong enough to take what we're going to throw at it. So a little bit more testing maybe when I'm available with the car to go and do retrieve if anything blows out. I think ultimately what I'm going to have to do is get a new, what I probably should do is get a new 9-speed chain, or well, probably 2 new 9-speed chains, and splice them together to make up a new chain of the right length. But I'm a bit, sometimes I think I'm a little bit prissy about these things. It's amazing what you can get away with bikes, really. And she also needs a complete new wheel set as well, because the front wheel bearing sounds like it's sort of basically square, so it's really crunchy. So yeah, there we go, another partial success. I think that probably just about does it for this. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to do a bit of a video of me whizzing up and down a hill. Maybe I'll try and do that, but if anyone, I sincerely hope that someone finds all this useful. I hope you do find it useful. If you were left in the same position that I felt that I was, with a bunch of bits and no instructions, I may well have helped you out a bit. I would greatly appreciate it if you'd stick stuff in the comments if you were assisted. It would make me feel good and make it feel like worth doing these things. So yeah, and there are other bits and pieces on this channel which you may enjoy. I suppose I should do that bit. I've still only got about 2 subscribers at the moment, so, and you know who you are, and I think at least one of them isn't watching any of my stuff anyway, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, thanks very much, and see you next time.